Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast, where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Hi, thanks for joining the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your host. I have with me today CL. He's going to share a story about alienation with his daughter. Thank you for being a guest. Why don't you get us started about what you experienced and tell us a little bit about how it started, where you're at, and what happens next. CL, thank you.
Okay. The whole story, I guess, would start around 2009. This has been my second marriage, and I know you were just asking that. And honestly, it was okay in the beginning, but there were still like red flags. Anytime we tried to do a task together, it was a decent amount of like bumping heads and stuff like that. And I just thought that over time, kinks would work out and things would get better. Um, and you know, about a year after we met, we actually got married. It was anytime you could be helping clean or helping sweep the floor or holding a dustpan, and it would. I mean, something would be awkward, and it would somehow turn into some kind of argument. And I thought things would get better, but they obviously did not. And after marriage, obviously things sort of declined, and really after the birth of our child, it even more so did. And she was born with achondroplasia. So it introduced some hospital stays and surgeries and things like that that would all probably stress any marriage, but one that was already probably having some significant issues. It would a little bit more came from that, I believe. But so in a household that, let's say, I've got an older daughter at the time. And she had an older daughter at the time. And then, our youngest, and, growing up, like at Christmas times, and I'll just throw this out as an example, um, presents and stuff like that from grandparents. My ex-wife would always find a problem if everybody didn't get the exact same thing from my parents. She thought that it was wrong and that I need to say something about it, or I need to be involved in making them basically get the same thing for each child. And I mean, there's a difference even in the age. And I remember, one specific time that my oldest daughter, she needed a laptop or something for school, and it turned into like this huge argument because my wife didn't agree that she should get a laptop if everybody else didn't get a laptop. Uh, but it's just things. It's a lot of things like that, and it was a lot of jealousy for some reason with my wife about my older daughter. She would try to start arguments and by basically talking like really ugly about my older daughter, and I thought it was strange, and I unfortunately I played into a lot of that, and now I can look back and it was kind of stupid, and I shouldn't have. It takes two people to argue, um, but so what she would do was she would basically get sort of a heated argument going, and then she would sort of record me and not her part, And of course, she saved all this stuff, for later, which she couldn't use it for anything. But I mean, I'm sure she still has it, and she probably shows it to my daughter, and probably says, look how he talked to me, or look what went on. It was abusive relationship, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, I believe is what happened is happening. As we speak. Where should we move on from here? It's a
Yeah.
direct so,
So
I
we,
actually, I tell you where I will.
yeah.
So I watched a lot of your podcasts, and one thing I never really
Mhm.
thought about was one you asked somebody one time, did they see any signs of, alienation, parental alienation, beforehand? I never really thought about it, but yes, there definitely was. She would, so obviously, the thing with the grandparents, she just I've met nobody that doesn't like my parents, but her. Um, and it came to a point where she just was like, "No, I'm not going over to anything that they have anymore, and our daughter isn't either. You can if you like, and you can take your older daughter, but, she's not going." And, she would also tell my youngest daughter, our daughter, um, that my parents weren't her grandparents. They may have been my older daughter's grandparents, but they weren't her grandparents. And to me, when you asked that question to this person in the podcast that I was watching, this popped into my head, and I said, "Oh man, I never really thought about this, but this was going on." Um, definitely. Uh, so, well, coming up to like the split, so like I say, it was a lot of this over a period of 10 years, and closer to, yeah, I guess, to the split. She filed a couple of 50Bs. I think the first one she filed just to see if what she could do with it, and obviously, here in North Carolina, that's all you have to do, and they will remove you from the house, pending a trial or a court hearing, at least. And after she filed the first one, it was right at Christmas time, and then she called and was trying to get them to remove it without going to court, and they were like, "Oh no, if you file this, you actually fear for your life. That's why you're filing this. Is not like a game." But so evidently, yeah, she somehow they did. I think they did allow her to do that, or maybe we got heard early on this one. This is way back, and they threw it out. She said that she wanted to throw it out, and they threw it out. And so I had moved back into the home, and before long, things were back in the same direction, arguments and such like that. And I believe for the next several months, I spent sleeping on the couch. And then came the second 50B. I knew what was going to happen. They came. I didn't know she had filed it. I said, I hope this is, and pretty much I knew what they were doing. And yeah, they told me to get my stuff and leave. And the only thing you take is your clothes and whatever you have for work. And she would do this. She would file this 50B, and then she would try, in North Carolina at least, if you contact a person while you have this 50B, or you try to be in the same place or contact them, it is a felony. And so she would call and call and call, and it would be like a restricted number, or it was where if you looked at the phone, you wouldn't know who it is. And I had to actually call not sheriff or 911 or something, and I let them know what was going on, and talk with somebody about it. And I don't remember what they had. Obviously, they didn't do much. They said, just let them know in court and stuff and stuff. Um, but I was out to eat one night, and it was later in the evening. It was about 10 o'clock p.m. here, and it definitely too late to have like an 8-year-old out. And when I walked out, saw the vehicle up front, and I was like, "Oh goodness, I know whose vehicle this is. I need to hurry up and get to the car." And so I didn't make it to the car before I heard her screaming. And I turned around, she was holding our daughter, and obviously I did not engage. I just got in the car and left. Well, my mom called me the next day and said, which was the next. Was Monday. This was Saturday night. So Monday she calls and it's like, you know, what's going on? You've got a warrant for you, and she's saying that you showed up somewhere that she was at, and I was like, no, actually. She was outside when I walked out of a restaurant, and this restaurant was not even in our hometown. I mean, it was at least um, 30 minutes away. Um, it's closer to where my job was, and where I was trying to find a place to stay. But anyway, yeah, so that happened, and um, they didn't put handcuffs on me, but basically I had to sign uh, m whatever. It didn't call it They didn't have like a bail or anything like that. I just had to sign, and they ended up throwing everything out. Yeah, in court whenever it was finally heard. But I mean, unfortunately, this time in particular, it took about 6 or 7 months. Um, Continuances, she changed lawyers, and this was the first time that she had actually successfully pretty much kept my daughter away, and I didn't see her for 6 months. And so, as soon as they threw it out, I had a guy I work with, and he said, "Man, you need to go see your daughter at school." And I left, and I had lunch with her, and she was obviously glad to see me. I took some pictures with us, and she had stated that she was scared that she did. Well, she said, "I never thought I'd see you again." I mean, that was only 6 months at that time. Uh, anyway, so the next week, I had tried to do it again, and when I got there, you have to sign in to go and have lunch, and, they said, "The principal wants to speak with you," and they called me and they said, "Well, after you came and had lunch with your daughter, your wife hasn't allowed her to come back to school." And, so, you know, she never actually came back to school. They say she started getting her homeschooled somewhere, and, let's see, and then over the course of, the next, uh, let's say, this is 2019, so, I mean, we were pretty much in court from 2019 to, 2023, I guess. So a good 4 years of constant, almost almost once a month, I would spend a day in court, but, I'll circle back to, whenever we had to sell, like, the family home, you gotta split the proceeds kinda thing. I had a, house that I was renting, by that time, and, so when it did sell, they said they couldn't find anything in the area, and to pretty much, move to the other end of the state. So, um, yeah, roughly 4.5, 5 hours away. And I really believe that that was the next attempt at separating us and the beginning of the real alienation. But, as we worked out in court that they would have to drive half the distance, and I drove half the distance, and I did it on Fridays and I did it on Sundays, and we got it worked out that I would have every other weekend and 3 weeks in the summer, 1 week that I have off for Christmas with my job, and it was maybe a couple of other holidays here and there. Um, they acted like they were gonna, work with me, yeah, but, obviously, I think they had other things in mind. There was numerous occasions that I would make the drive and they didn't show up, and I would have to call my lawyer and say, "Hey, they're not here." And they said, "Hey, we'll have to file," I can't think of the word of it now, contempt. Yeah, those is file a contempt, and, we did this at least 4 or 5 times without going back and checking records, and then the first time that it happened, the judge awarded me, 2 weeks, visitation with my child, and, we did that, and, each time after that, they did a little bit more, but never really anything more than a pop on the wrist, so nothing that would, I mean, $2 or $3,000, each time is a fine, but, if I spent, 5, I might I might see 2,500 back. So pretty much a slap on the wrist, is all that, she would get. I know, so, like, and sometimes when I would drop her off, and one of the other things that was, like, really, really odd, she would want me to hurry up and hug her before they pulled up. She did not want to be seen hugging me, um, before she went back with them, but, of course, she runs over their car, and the first thing that mom says is, "Hey, give him," give, your stepdad a hug. So, well, maybe I missed that part. I think I should circle back, so 3 weeks after the 50B, mom her mom, on somebody's, tells me that on Facebook, she's in a relationship, and honestly, within, as soon as our divorce was finalized, I think they got married, like, the next week, and, almost immediately, you know, she, I guess, was, wanting, my daughter to call the new guy dad and stuff like that, and the only reason I know that is the guardian ad litem that would, that we had would actually told me that. And, some of the things that they would do, whenever I would take her back, the guardian ad litem did tell me that, she knew that they would, sorta interrogate them, like video interrogate her, and ask about all the things that, was said, and what we did, what we ate, where we went, everything, and, so somebody had told me that the new guy in a different state, he was like a crime scene investigator or something, and maybe he knew, and maybe some of this was his idea. Um, but even starting with the 50B and before it was thrown out, they would sort of taunt me, like on social media. People would say, "Oh man, you should see what she's posted now." And she would post pictures like of, the new guy, at my house in a rocking chair, rocking my child, and it would say something about something being, better than blood, or, that, he was better for her than me. Not probably not in those words, but, in different words, but, without it in front of me right now, I can't remember exactly what was said, but, and there was more than one incident that this was done, and I do remember, she had actually had a picture on there of him giving her a bath, and, she was talking about, how, all the good things that the new guy done, and she didn't have to ask for this, didn't have to ask for that, just anything to make me look bad.
How old was she when you first left the house on the second 50B?
Okay, um, I believe around 7 or 8. That would be,
Okay.
pretty accurate. Um, and
So then
so,
you moved away and you started.
well, yeah, so I ended up actually, moving in with my parents, for a while, but, my work was about 45 minutes to an hour away from them, so, eventually I got an apartment closer to that job. So I wanted um, I guess the next thing that comes to mind is, uh, some of the, um So we stayed in court a lot. I mean, at least once a month, I would have to be off for that. And if there were periods where we didn't hear anything, and things would kind of mellow out, and it would always concern me because next thing you know, that's when the next big thing happens, and DSS will show up. They've got accusations that my house is unsafe, that I don't have proper clothes or proper food, and that's how that stuff started. And of course, everything was fine, but in a way, I believe that this was just like to not to inconvenience me, but kind of to show that I guess she was still in control of things. Um, and they went from that, and over the next few years, it would get worse each time. I think one of, and I don't remember exactly in chronological order. Yeah, I can't think right this. But not sure of the exact order. But uh, one of the times she made accusations that I had a legal firearm or something of that such, and one time, she said that my daughter had caught me with a needle in my arm, and one of the times, let's see, okay, so one of the times that it gradually got worse and worse, and some of the accusations that I got um, were that me and my fiance were actually feeding her or having her drink things that would be medicated or something, where she would pass out, and or we were moving her around the house, and she was waking up in different spots. Um, these were all accusations. In the end, the guardian ad litem told me, that most of the time this is the way it goes. If some of the smaller things don't stick, then you move to the sexual accusations, and then that's exactly where it ended up. I was awakened one morning, 3 o'clock, I believe. So many agents that I couldn't count the number of cars in my driveway at the time. I'd had I had a new house at the time, and I was in Durham County, and had a significantly long driveway. And I just remember it was full of cop cars, and I had quite a few neighbors, and the lights were popping on. So I answered the door, and they pretty much said who they were looking for, and I said, "Well, this has to be something to do with my ex-wife. Let me grab some clothes and put them on." And because I think I was standing there in my boxers, and they pretty much shoved their way in, got me out on the front porch, wouldn't let me put anything else on, and they were probably in the house, like turning the house upside down, every room of the house, from 3 a.m. to probably 9. And I had to be at work at 7:30. So, and when they left, like all the computers, my daughter's iPad, my computer, ex-fiance's computer, my phone, I didn't have anything, any way of contacting my mom, my dad, my work. I just had to drive there, which was about an hour away, and I had to tell them what was going on when I got there. And these agents, they pretty much it took them probably I don't know, 6 months at least, and the DSS, they closed it, but the DSS, it's like they never wanted to close it. And I should add that this is they're not in Durham County; they were in Burke County, the other end of the state. So their DSS would work through Durham County's DSS, and they always had a good review of my home and stuff. And then in the end, they actually closed up there, saying that they were that I had provided some kind of injurious environment. Um, which, my lawyer said it didn't mean much. But at that point, which was pretty much here at the end, and after, from 2019, I think this is up until, the end of 2022, maybe 23 by then, that, he was saying that, we're going to have some kind of uh, expert witness that is going to cost a lot of money. Is say, you're probably going to have 20 grand for the expert witness. I was looking at, maybe another 50 grand that I was going to need for a huge trial, and that I should file for full custody. Or maybe actually, I think I had filed for full custody before she turned into stuff about the sexual accusations. I think maybe that was what um, pushed her to, to go that next step. But when he was telling me that, that it was going to take another, $50,000, that was in the end. Um, which, and my biggest fear, I won every time that I was ever in court, and every single time. And my biggest fear that I always told my mom was, what if, my biggest fear would be that somehow that they could convince her that she didn't want to come. Not that, and then, well, what could I do about that? Um, from a legal standpoint, that would be the only way that they could, pretty much win. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. Like and I'm not saying this was obviously before the prior, what I was saying about the sexual accusations. This was all after what I'm saying. I guess I've sort of circled back. Sorry. Um, but so on some of the final times that I went up there to pick her up, she was all. I've never had any issues with her coming. We've always been really tight. She loved coming with me, and so the only time that she ever did not was one of the last couple of times that I came up there, and it just the weekend before it was perfect, and I couldn't, there was nothing that seemed out of the way, uh, and to the next Friday that I was supposed to pick her up, she got out of the car, and by this time, my ex-wife wasn't even attending the drop-offs. Over time, she stopped coming. It was just the new husband. He sort of stood behind her, let her, walk out in front of him, and he pretty much said, that she didn't want to come with me anymore, and uh, so, I mean, one of the things I've probably missed is that, my well, her mom, she had a fight, she picked a fight with, my first wife when she was about 8 months pregnant, and, my first wife had, filed charges, and my wife at the time, which is the one we're discussing now, she went home and took pictures of her injuries, and, so we're gonna go back to what I was saying. My daughter says to me, "I saw the picture and I saw what you did to my mom's face. She should be in jail." And I was like, "Baby, I can't talk to you about this kind of stuff. I can just tell you that you know what you think and what they're telling you is it's not true." And so I knew at that point when they said something about a picture, that's the only picture that I know of, and that's what I knew at that point that they had both had showed her this picture and said that I had done this to her, and she was telling me that she didn't want to come back with me. Um, so in court, when questioned about this, I think they had the new husband on the stand and had asked him, and he says, "Oh no, we didn't show her the picture. My wife has these pictures in the uh, bedside table, and she went looking and found it herself, and so she obviously just, you know, I get what he was saying was that she just assumed that I had done that. And, I think everybody knew it was in the courtroom that it was a lie." Uh, she was caught in so many lies in court, and she was handed so many contempts over the years. I mean, they knew her game here at this one that we attended in Granville County. So she eventually tried to move everything to Burke County, and I think that was just because she knew where she stood, and the only thing at that point was to get fresh eyes on it, and because she wouldn't get anywhere here with and she went through several lawyers and stuff like that. And one of the things I forgot to mention, she also got um psychiatrists from my daughter, and she went through several of them. And I believe the reason she did that is she wanted to find one that she could manipulate. And some of these 50Bs, she actually filed. One of them was a 50B that she filed. Somehow it was almost like what they had done is my daughter, it was written up like, my daughter was filing it, but she was only 10 years old, right? And so mom was signing for her to file it, is basically. And that had the accusations that I was telling you about, where they thought that we were drugging her and moving around the house. There were other things, talking ugly to her, things that when I read, I mean, it really really hurt me. I mean, it's something nothing I would ever say, or no, that my fiance would not say either. So,
So how did that and what is your relationship like with her today, if you have one at all?
so I have not seen her in 3 years. Um, um, I tried, in the end, we after that initial final attempt to get her to come with me, I went back probably 4 or 5 more Fridays where, some of the same things would happen. This new stepdad, he would, I guess, call like the sheriff's department. They would come. Nothing got like heated or out of hand. Um, one of the times it was the sheriffs. They told me, she's only 10 years old, man. You can pick her up and put her in your car and leave. It's not this serious. But I'm like, I mean, I couldn't. I don't know. I just couldn't bring myself to make her come with me. When she was saying she did not want to come. Yeah, that was yeah, it kind of ended with that. And um so they had always her and him had always pressured me to they wanted me to sign over rights, and
Did
they
you
had
ever
made this known to me, not written or recorded or anything, they would tell
mhm.
me. And she, mainly her, um so so in the end, they were this is what they were pretty much. My lawyer, I talked with him, and he I can't remember exactly how it came to, but he was saying that this is what they wanted, and I had fought this thing for several years. My parents were concerned. I mean, obviously the accusations were, even though they didn't find anything and stuff like that, the accusations were really bad. The guardian ad litem, she knew that these things were false, but she also said, if you do, even if you do get her and start getting her again, concern is what they're going to say the next time, or what they're going to do next time. It's already getting serious. Uh, so pretty much they had gave this option, I guess, to my lawyer. And yeah, yeah, like I said, I had family members that were asking me, think about, just stepping back from this thing. And this obviously was getting out of hand. And uh, I I thought about it for, months, and, it was several months, and I eventually, did cave in, and I went that route, and I don't think it was the right decision at this point, and, I don't know what I could have done any differently. I mean, uh, what are the options? Even if you go in and have a strong trial, and even if you were to, take the child away from the other parent, I mean, or even if I was able to get to see her again, I mean, it would be the same thing that, they thought that, once the visitation started back again, it would be the same. It was just sort of a cycle we were going through, and it sort of never ended. And I have a friend now that's a DA, and, he pretty much, said the same thing as the guardian ad litem had told me, that it's like a non-ending thing in this case, and, it would always be something. But yeah, I haven't seen her in 3 years, at this point. Um, it's, obviously, the alienation of affection, I mean, parental alienation, it's a bad thing, and, uh, I definitely, it affects me, and it has affected me, and it's not getting any better. I will have, I still have dreams, and I'm not even gonna say, it's every other month or anything. I mean, this is every week. Uh, it's just something. I guess it's a wound that it's never, it's not gonna heal anytime soon. I look forward to, when she's, a little bit older. So she's, 14 at this point, and, at least by 18, maybe I can, salvage something, and show her just how much, I did fight, to keep a relationship. And really, I do, and one thing that keeps me sane is I do know, um, that she knew that her mom was out of line in some of the things, just comments that she said to me. Um, we were able to spend some time with my first wife, who at this point would have, a little girl that was a little bit younger than Danica, and we were over, and they were playing together, and she took some pictures, and she says, "Hey, what are you gonna do with these pictures? You're not gonna put them online, are you?" And she says, "Why?" And she says, "Well, because my mom's a psycho, that's why." And you know, it's just like I think about that, and I know that she, um, knew that something wasn't right. So I sort of feel like, that she was pressured into doing or saying things that she knew that she shouldn't. And I think that she really, I mean, that's, and what guardian ad litem, told me, that's mom. You know, you got to do what mom says. And that's the way I kind of think about it. I don't think.
I think what I'm hearing is that the hope is that she'll come back, and when you made the decision to walk away, I think ultimately it was to protect her as well because of the abuse she endured by having to see you in her mother's eyes and
Right, right,
with the
that.
interrogation, right?
Yeah, and at this point, in the beginning, she wasn't being questioned in court. She wasn't. By this time, she was,
Mhm.
and, she was being put through the courts, and that is something that I gave some thought to. Um, is the impact that it's having on her as well, and, uh, I do know. I remember that, she would, tell me that, things like, "Well, mom said, if that my grades would be better if I didn't have to, come here on," and I'm like, "Well, I mean, it's only every other weekend. I don't think it's gonna affect the grades that much, you know?" Um, I think this is something that, and I don't know many people that have went through the, alienation of affection, and I don't think that I had, you know, had the right resources or the people to talk to. because this thing is it's really it has a big impact on me daily and weekly. She's something that I think about. I think about my daughter every day. I just think, and I think, why would somebody do this? There's enough love that, you could have, step parents, and you could have, I'm somebody that, that I don't, that I don't know. I'm trying to think of the words. I've got a good job. I don't do anything illegal. Um, there's no there's no reason why, that I should not have a good relationship with my daughter, and it just for somebody to do this is like revenge, because that's the only way I can think of it. There was a guy that was friends with her that reached out to me in the beginning. He said, "Man, I want to let you know that she told me that she's not going to let your daughter love you." And this was in the beginning when we had first that second 50B, and we were splitting up, and I believe that she was already with the new guy, um, but he reached out to me to tell me that, and I guess I was, should have known at that point that things are probably going to get crazy before the end, and that it's uh,
Well, CL, I really appreciate you sharing your story and the heartbreak. And the hope is she will find her way back in 4 years. Any final thoughts before we close out?
So my guardian ad litem, I reach out, and I'll say something to her every once in a while, and she tells me the same thing. She says, she's been doing it 30 some years. She said she's gonna call you, and when she does, I want you to tell me, and you call me. I don't care how old I am. If I'm still alive, she said, you call me and tell me that I was right. And I told her, I said, I definitely will. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story and thank you for being a guest on the Fractured Families podcast.
I appreciate you having me. I do a lot of listening to podcasts of different kinds, and yours, I think I've listened to all of them at this point. Yeah, I listen to them while I'm working.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being a follower and supporting.
No
Thank you,
problem.
CL.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real, and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.